Hello, listener, possibly listeners. We're here to talk about Royce White in his game last night. That was March 10th, 2013, in the 20-point Viper win over the Reno Bighorns. When I think Reno, I think Reno 911, and apparently there's not much else going on there. The Reno Bighorns are 13 and 25, and by golly, they proved that they're worth every loss on that record in this game tonight. Notables on the other team: Samardo Samuels, who I would say is their best player. Got 22 and 10, no, 22 and 13. He's a big man. I think he's 6'11", 7 foot. We're going to talk a lot about him. All right, two players, Farmer and Tucker. They are the starting shooting guard and point guard for the Reno Bighorns. Tucker put up 27. Played 32 minutes. Farmer played 40 minutes. Put up 19. Most of that came in the first half. Farmer had 6 assists. Tucker had 2 assists. Everyone who was good on the Reno Bighorns, and that's the above 3 I've just mentioned, got into foul trouble tonight. A comment that the announcer made, and I agree with, is that the Reno Bighorn, or the Vipers, unlike the Bighorns, are pretty much interchangeable, meaning that everyone has a competitive skill set. Whereas with the Bighorns, the players that came in off the bench stunk it up. The Reno Bighorns were playing short tonight. I count 5, 6, 7, 8 players. 2 players were unable to play tonight. Both of them are former NBA players, and I know this because I've seen them in 2K. You had Ronald Dupree, who I've always thought is Flip Murray. He's not. I don't know where that came from. But I now recognize that they are 2 separate entities, and Marcus Landry. Both of them have played NBA time. I think it was big for the Reno Bighorns that they did not have them tonight. Anyway, the final score is 120 to 108. I did not watch the final 3 minutes of this game. The scrubs went in, and it was over. They were winning this whole entire game. Beyond, I'd say, the first quarter, you never thought the Bighorns were gonna pull this out. They never showed any life, and halfway through the third quarter, you knew the game was over, or I had a feeling that the game was over. So let me pull up my notes, and we can start talking Royce White. I give Royce White 3 out of 5 Winnebagos on this game. He didn't have a spectacular game, but he did have a solid game. There were not many holes in it. A lot of the pitfalls we've seen in Royce White's game did not show up in this, which was interesting. We haven't seen that happen once yet. He was a background player in this game, and I kind of wonder whether that is going to more become his role now, because they picked up a few players via trade, and this team went from didn't look very talented to having a whole lot of assets. I'll use that word in these games. So starting, they have Glen Royce, who's I'll just talk. I mean, at this point, I know there's new listeners, and so I'll just say I'll run through every player quickly. Glen Royce, who's their starting shooting guard. He gets hot and cold. More often he's hot. He had a plus 29. That was his plus minus in this game. He's a great defensive player. He had a possible D-League dunk of the year earlier, a few games, 5, 6 games ago against the Texas Legends. He can jump out of the gym. Very strong on the low post on offense and defense. I've seen him for short periods of time bump with the opposing centers. I've seen him get over 10 rebounds in a few games. Not really much of a passer. He can score, and he gets up really high on blocked shots. I've seen him get a few rejections that way. He had 23 points in this game. You have Chris Johnson, who is I feel like if you're in rec ball, this guy would be the best player on the team. If you took any single player and put them on a rec team, Gowdlock would be great, and Chris Johnson would be great. He's a little slow, and so he can't get his shot up, and he's sort of reduced into the role of a 3-point shooter. But you can tell he has a good cut game, as in he cuts to the basket well. Royce White and him have a nice what's the word? They have a nice well, Royce White can get the ball to him, and often Chris Johnson, unlike let's say a Glen Rice who's strong, Chris Johnson will get fouled instead of finish the play, just because the athleticism at his level. But he's a good player. They say he's a 3-point specialist. The announcers for the Vipers talk about that constantly. I don't know. I think he's okay, honestly, and that's it. He played 22 minutes, 3 of 7, and had 11 points. You have Royce White, who I'll talk enough about, and then they're sort of looking for I'm sorry, Glen Rice plays small forward, and so it says guard here, but I've seen he's small forward, and they're looking for a player to start with in this lineup, and they've tried a few different players. A few games ago, they had Malik Wayans, who I was not a big fan of. He's been called up to the Clippers on a 10-day contract. Now they're trying out Trey Murray. I believe he got the last start as well, although DJ Kennedy might have. DJ Kennedy, they recently acquired. He is the number 2 D-League prospect, which is amazing to me because I didn't see, he's okay, but number 2 out of the whole D-League is absurd to me. Gowdlock is number 5, and I believe Samardo Samuels, who was on the opposing team, is somewhere in the top 20. So Trey Murray, he doesn't really make much of an impression on me or on this game, apparently. 26 minutes, 2 of 5, 5 points, 0 assists, 3 rebounds. He doesn't he turned the ball over once. You know, he can shoot a little bit. In the first game I saw him play, I thought he was a scorer. Not really so, but he's a player that can score when he gets open, can pass. I didn't really see any weaknesses in his game, although he's kind of small, and I didn't really see outstanding strengths. And then we get to Gowdlock, who scores a consistent 20 a game. I've seen him go above. I've never seen him go under. Maybe he scored 19 once. Very impressive player. Kobe Bryant nicknamed him Mini Mamba. And the more I watch him play and think about that nickname, the more appropriate it is. He's a good spot-up shooter. He's good at getting his own shot off the dribble all the way out to the 3-point line. He's got the strongest part of his game are his floaters. He can finish at the rim, although he doesn't have crazy hops. You won't see him dunking on anyone. Well, you might, but it won't be. He's not. I call him Mini Mamba. He doesn't have the athleticism of Kobe Bryant, prime Kobe Bryant for sure. But he does have a great, great, great floater. He just tosses it up. He can get bumped and toss up his floater. He can see a big man coming and throw it over him. He's a talented scorer. He finishes the game 37 minutes, 23 points, 7 steals, 11 assists, 3 rebounds. I'm surprised this guy's still on the team, honestly. I'm sure NBA teams are looking at him. So, okay, let's go. I'm going to go through my game notes now, and I'm going to talk about the game. So, Reno's shorthanded. They have 8 players. They're missing those NBA players, Ronald Dupree and Marcus Landry. The game starts out, and I'm not sure who the better team is. I immediately recognize Royce White is on Samardo Samuels for most of this game. The Vipers like to switch into a 2-3 zone, but occasionally. But when in man, Royce White is on Samardo Samuels, who again is a 6'11", 7-foot center, heavier than Royce White, not by much. It's not like Eddie Curry, but he's got. I've seen him play in the NBA. I've heard of him playing in the NBA. He's bigger than Royce White. He is a center. Royce White is a power forward, a point forward. He's a tweener between small forward and a power forward. And that's not what point forward means. I'm just saying he's also a point forward. A point forward is a power forward that has point guard ability, I guess. But he plays at the power forward position. Royce White is, he is a power forward. He's not a small forward power forward. I'd like to see him be more physical, but he is a power forward. And anyway, he's undersized at the PF position, but they play him at center. Originally, that was just a small lineup. They'd like to go small, but now it's become their starting lineup, and it's working okay. Although I do fear a very big, very talented team coming at them. The last good team they played, I say, is the Texas Legends, and they gave them a hell of a time down low. And the Santa Cruz Warriors were also a huge problem. I'd say even bigger than the Legends. They had 21 offensive rebounds. No. Yeah, I think they had 21 to 24 offensive to defensive rebounds, almost as many defensive as offensive. They were not scoring at will, but they were getting every rebound off of every shot and putting them back in or being fouled. So that was bad. Anyway, it wasn't a big problem this game. I thought Samardo Samuels, and he sort of was a new beast facing Royce White. He's played a lot of centers that try to beat him up down low. Most teams do. Samardo is more of I saw Dirk-esque shots from him early in the game. As the game went on, he sort of faded, and that part of his game wasn't really apparent. But in the beginning, he was hitting fadeaway hook shots, just kind of shots out of a back down scenario. So Royce White hasn't played any player like that. That was cool. So it wasn't cool. It was just it was interesting to see how Royce White reacted to this new sort of player, and he didn't get burned, which is good. Kennedy didn't start, but he came right in the game. I think Kennedy is going to be their new starter. I'll talk about him in another video. Royce White scores 9:40 left with an up and under. An up and under is when you have your back to a player guarding you. You sort of shimmy one way. I don't know if shimmy is the right word. You act like you're going to turn, let's say, left, but not so much that the player, you don't want to lose the ball doing that. It's a fake. So you fake left enough to sell the defender on him. You want him to think that you're about to turn right and shoot the ball, maybe a fader or something like that. So you fake left, go right, go up like you're going to shoot, exaggerate it. The defender jumps up to block the shot, at which point you dip your shoulders, go under him, and that's the under. The up is the fake, and then under is you go under the player that's jumped to block you, and you finish with a layup. He had a nice up and under on Samardo with 9:40 left. With 7:40 left, he gets around Samardo and finishes. It looked like it was going to be a high-scoring game for Royce White. Not so. He had 10 points. They put this new player in, Mike Singletary, who came over in the Kennedy trade. And I'm trying to figure out what this guy's role is on the team. Apparently, he was formerly their highest scorer. So I'm interested to see how a high scorer fits in with Gowdlock and Rice, who are the high scorers right now. He does score. He can score. I can tell that. He's a scorer. But he's got a big body, and he can get up the court. He's a cool player. He scores with 5:59. And then this is when the announcer lets us know that DJ Kennedy is the number 2 prospect in the D-League. I think that's absurd. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an NBA talent scout, but to me it doesn't always make sense who gets called up and who doesn't. I think Glen Rice is obscenely talented. I think Gowdlock deserves a place on the team. But I've heard Hassan Whiteside have a lot of buzz, and he's a project, but he's still a project. You don't want him on an NBA court. He'll stink up your court. And then Malik Waynes, who I thought he wasn't garbage, but he wasn't good. He got a 10-day with the Clippers, so I don't know. Samardo uses a hook move on Royce White with 4:30 left in the first quarter. Now, a hook move is you have your back to the player, you have the ball, you're on offense, you're trying to get around the player. So what you do is you turn one way, you get your elbow around his side, and as you push off your leg, use your leg strength to go up for the layup, you've moved the player out of a position to guard you with your offhand. That's a hook move. Samardo tries a hook move on Royce White, and it doesn't work. Royce White isn't fazed by it. So what I'm getting from this is Royce White has a very solid body, and it's going to take a lot, very strong as well, and it's going to take a lot to move Royce White out of the way. So I think this is where Samardo kind of is more of a finesse center than we've seen before. Um, he likes to get away. He likes to use pretty moves, or not pretty moves, but moves that take agility, more agility than the other center would usually have. And I'm sure once the other center starts to bite, he also has fake moves. Um, we didn't see much of that. So Samardo's that doesn't work. He has some good D on Samardo later in the quarter. They go back and forth for a while. That's just the beginning of how this is going. Samardo is going at Royce White. He scores a few times on him um, in a back down format. He had this really nice baseline fadeaway. Here it is in the second quarter. So let me start talking about that. Okay, so 3 minutes left in the first quarter. Royce White is taken out. We get into the second quarter. I guess it's they put in this new guy, Chris Daniels. Now, I didn't know who Chris Daniels was. He just showed up on the roster today. Apparently, they traded for him. They traded Scott Machado, who I thought they talked a lot about him. Said he was an NBA prospect, and then he never touched the court. That really confused me. I don't think he was on the team for very long. So I don't know. What? Rest in peace, Scott Machado. Good luck wherever you're at. They have this new. So Chris Daniels traded for him. I originally wondered why they had Royce White out and Chris Daniels in. They have tried in this period, as in the end of the first, beginning of the second, to put Mike Singletary in at Royce White's position. What I think they're trying to do, Nick Nurse is the head coach of the Vipers, what I think Nurse is trying to do is find an alternative to Royce White in case Royce White gets into foul trouble, in case he gets, God forbid, ejected, but just a backup small team to run, or a backup for a small team, as in they have a small lineup to run at his position. Singletary, I guess I didn't like him because they did have rebounding problems when Singletary went in for Royce White last game. So now they've acquired Chris Daniels, who I'd say he's a 7-footer, thick. I compare him to, he's more like a Hassan Whiteside than a Samardo, who's very skilled around the basket. He's just sort of a talented body. I'll talk more about him in a little bit. But at this point, I'm wondering, why is Chris Daniels in the game? 9 minutes left in the quarter. So I guess 3 minutes have gone by. I'm thinking, where's Royce White? He's got his breather. 3 more minutes pass. Samardo hits with 6 minutes left, hits a baseline fade shot. And that it was at that point, I'm still not really sure what the verdict is on Samardo. He's getting rebounds, but there's not really much. There's no fight for the rebound. It's sort of the way Royce White piled up 10 rebounds the other day, just because in the whole first quarter he got like 6, because he was the only one getting defensive rebounds. Everyone else is running up the court, offense included. So Samardo's getting those, so I'm not thinking much of his rebound total. He's made a few offensive plays. He's gone back and forth with Royce White. He looks talented, though. So he hits this fader, and I'm like, shit, they need to do something about this guy. I think he might go off. Royce White comes back with 6 minutes left in the quarter. He kind of stinks it up the second he gets in. 5:20 left. I noticed that he didn't move once on the on offense. The ball wasn't. I guess it was a set play, and it wasn't coming for him. And they swung it around. It went from the right side of the court, pass, to the left side of the court, all the way back to the right side of the court, and then the score happened on the left side of the court. Royce White managed not to move, not to set a screen that whole entire time. I almost gave him I have the scoring system for Royce White. I should have said this at the beginning of the video. I give him 0 out of 5, or somewhere on a scale of 0 to 5 Winnebagos. If you don't know, Royce White to away games drives his Winnebago, and so they call him Winnebago White on the team. And I think it's a funny little joke. So I award him 1 out of 5 or 0 out of 5 Winnebagos based on his performance and how well he played. In this game, I gave him 3. It wasn't an outstanding game, but it was a good game. So yeah, I also count up his positive and negative plays and give him an overall be well score. If you don't follow him on Twitter, he has a hashtag be well, and people make fun of him for it on Clutch Fans a lot. It's just he wants his online persona seems to suggest that he wants everyone to be well, and he uses hashtag humanist as well, and his online presence is about advocating mental health, mental health. So be well is one of his things, and I saw someone crack a good be well joke at the end in one of my old videos, I think, or no, it was on Clutch Fans. In one of the games, he gets ejected. On the way out, he sort of pats the mascot on the back. Like, he literally gets ejected, walks right off the court, and kind of looks he looks really disturbed, as in upset. He looks upset, and it's just really funny that what he thought to do was to pat the what's it called in the back, the mascot on the back. And I made a joke about what he said, and someone commented he probably told him to be well. So that's where the be wells were born. Anyway, in this game he gets 2 be wells. I wasn't really feeling like taking or giving be wells in this. It wasn't. I want to say he wasn't doing much, positive or negative, but it could just be me. I could just, have watched it a certain way, not noticed what I normally do. Because normally I have like a bunch of B wells, positive and negative. In this, I just had 2 positive. So I don't know. 4 minutes left. Okay, so 5 minutes, no ball movement. 4:30, no one's in the lane. There's an open layup. I wondered if it was Royce White's fault. I think they were in a 2-3 zone. Not really sure. I didn't watch the replay, honestly, so that happened. 4 minutes left. Royce White takes a bad shot. He's established himself as not a jump shooter. All right, so he's established himself as being unable to be a jump shooter. Although he shot a lot in the first few games, I thought he was just off. Game 9 now, I think he's made 1 jump shot. In the last game, he made 1 20-foot jump shot. He takes 2 to 4 a game, or 1 to 4 a game. So in this, he takes a shot, doesn't look like it's going in, doesn't. Little later in the quarter, I don't have a number on it. Royce White's fouled by Samardo, who's now in foul trouble. Samardo doesn't like the call, picks up a tech. This is where Samardo really started to break down. Later in the game, he becomes irrelevant. Spoiler alert. I should have said that before I said that. Well, anyway, I don't think anyone's sweating it. So he's in foul trouble, and I think their big man presence, which is important to have against the Vipers, is now gone. I want to note that D-League officials really control the game differently than do NBA officials. You cannot talk back to a D-League official. You can't, if you said ball don't lie, if Rasheed Wallace was in the D-League, he would not complete a game. He seriously would not, because they do not tolerate you talking back to them. That's why Royce White's been ejected. It took him, he took the highway for a few games, and Samardo literally just looked at the ref and was like, "Are you kidding me?" And tech. So wow, Glen Royce gets away with it a lot, but then again, Glen Royce, I think, whines more than he does critiques. I think he's just like, "Oh shit, I got fouled," instead of, "You need to call that foul." So it's more of a general woe is my life than a you suck. So yeah, Samardo is now going to be out of this game. Royce White makes another shot with 1:20 left. Royce White with 1:10 left makes a nice pass for an assist. And then with 4 seconds left in the quarter, Royce White is a great sportsman and picks up this player that looks like he's a little injured on the ground with 2 hands, make sure he's okay. And it was just such a nice moment. I gave him a be well. He was playing well, and then he did that nice thing, so he gets a be well for that. Be well is not all about basketball ability. It's about your demeanor on the court and your overall game, so he deserves a be well for that. My note here that Samardo outplayed Royce White in the first half. That was my opinion at the time. He was getting a lot of rebounds, and he looked like he was just running high octane. The ball was getting to him a lot. He was scoring. Yeah. What? Downstairs making a video. Yeah. So don't come in, please. No. Because I want to make my video. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm not gonna cut that out. Whatever. Um, And then now, if I look back, I don't think Samardo really outplayed Royce White in the first half. I'll say this: Samardo had higher highs than Royce White did. Royce White didn't wow me throughout this whole game. He played well, and he did his passing. He scored a little bit. He didn't take bad shots, which he doesn't usually have a problem with. He stayed away from dumb fouls. Samardo just had higher highs than Royce White, and I think I was higher up on him than I definitely was higher up on him than I am right now. So, okay, second half. Glen Royce, they give it to him right off the bat, and he does his pretty patented strong. They get him the ball like 10 feet out, and he'll back down his man. And he's stronger than any man I've seen them put on. I think one time they put a bigger man on him, and I think he was still stronger than him actually. But so he backs down his man, makes an awkward bump shot, bumps the guy, and fades back. I love him. I think that's cool that Glen Royce can do that. Just an awesome skill set. Royce White misses a shot with 10:50 left. Samardo's doing too much, is my quote. Turnover with 10:40. He had a bunch of turnovers. Let me look at his. Okay, he had Samardo Samuels 4 turnovers. Well, I remember every one of them then because I remember a few. I remember a lot of them, and I guess a lot is 4. So I have here Samardo played good defense. Oh yeah, this is true. This is true. So Royce White didn't had 10 points in this game. Samardo did play very good defense on Royce, not giving him the glimpse of daylight he needs to get around players and draw fouls. Royce White did not do that in this game, and that's where most of his points come from. Samardo is quick, and I called him finesse earlier. He's big, but he's quick on his feet, and Royce White was not faster than him, was not quicker than him, could not get around him like he does to most players that he faces. Um, Samardo gets away from low post offense, which is clearly his forte. Yeah, I had this comment halfway through the third quarter, so from there on he does nothing. Um, Rough series against, yeah, Samardo goes at Royce White. They bang. Samardo's trying to back him down. Royce White's hitting him right back. No score. Things just aren't going well for Samardo. Player on the other team, Tucker, is carrying the scoring load. He has 22 with 9:11 left in the third quarter. He ends the game with 27. 27, yeah, 27. So most of his points, and this is when they're still semi-competitive. So when the game goes to shit, he stops scoring. Glen Royce is missing some shots, and then right after I comment that, he hits 2 threes in a row. Just such a talented player. Uh, so the Vipers start having trouble getting stopping offensive rebounds. Now this is interesting because it's a problem we see in the third quarter specifically. And I've been thinking every game, what is it that happens in the third quarter other than the other team sitting down and being like, all right, everyone, hit the offensive boards. But there has to be something else because you'd think that happens every game. If the other team if the not Vipers are in the locker room saying hit the offensive boards, and the Vipers are in their own locker room saying they're going to hit the offensive boards. They do it every game, and you'd think that both teams would plan for it, and it would just sort of be neutral. But it's a problem they have every third quarter, and I don't understand why. It's partially because Royce White is in. Maybe this is it. In the first quarter, Royce White gets a lot of easy rebounds, just like Samardo did in this game, because players aren't hitting the offensive and defensive boards. A few are, not really offensive, but defensive, yes. In the third quarter, I think everyone's going for offensive boards. Everyone's warmed up, and I think that's when the small lineup that the Vipers have is sort of exposed. Maybe, I don't know. And then I have another comment here. What happened to Hassan Whiteside? He was playing 30 minutes a few games ago, and he almost didn't touch the court in this one, and I don't think he played last game. I don't know how the mighty have fallen for real. Royce White tries to go coast to coast with 8 minutes. You know when Royce White goes coast to coast, he has tells. He gets the ball, he'll be isolated, and he'll kick it up the court. In this one, he was the last player down the court, and he still saw fit to push and try to go coast to coast. Which I don't know. I'm not an NBA player. I had a weird angle. It's okay that he decided to. And He passes to a cutting Chris Johnson, and it's a bad pass. And it goes out of bounds. He likes passing to Chris Johnson in the post. I think they have what's the word? Damn it! Oh, chemistry. They have chemistry. At least in that respect, that part of their game. So, yeah, Royce White turnover. Offensive rebounds are still a problem until Chris Wright comes back in a little later. Samardo is still trying to do too much. This is sort of the theme for the rest of the game. He tries to go behind the back. He did it earlier in the game and turned it over. This time he does it, and it's a very questionable decision. And his basketball instincts really broke down. It was clear. He was in the post against a small lineup. Royce White he likes to get off bounds. I call them off rebounds. And not offensive, but off as in he doesn't stay right near the rim. He tries to catch it somewhere where he can push the ball. So he'll get out of direct, like 5 feet, a radius 5 feet from the basket, and try to get in a position to push the ball, try to go on a fast break if he can. So 3 players down low versus 7-foot Samardo, and he tries to go behind the back. And the ball is just so low at that point. He's bending over trying to get it, and all the other players are at the perfect height just swiping at it. And so he loses the ball. Duh. And then he puts his head down. Royce White, like I said, likes to get out and push the break. Gets the ball, scores. That's Samardo's fault on offense, bad instincts, that he doesn't get back on defense. Yeah. So then Chris Wright comes in for Royce White. What the hell? I have Chris Wright, and then I call him Daniels here. What's his name? Royce White. Oh, wow. I think I've been calling him Chris White. I don't know. Anyway, yeah. I've been calling him Chris Wright. There's no Wright on this team. And I spelled it Wright. That is curious. Okay, whatever. Chris Daniels. I'm sorry for calling him the wrong thing. Maybe the announcers did, because I swear I've heard Chris Wright a bunch of times. Okay, so Daniels, he's not very skilled, not very good touch nor shot selection, and maybe that's just because it was his first game. But he could rebound. He rebounded well. The offensive rebound problems immediately disappeared when he went in for Royce White. I have a comment here. Samardo was gone, and then he's just out of the game. Not being aggressive, and they had a 19-point lead. This game was over in the third quarter. Fourth quarter, let's skip to 7 minutes in. Royce White comes back in. He didn't play very much tonight, nor do they need him. So, yeah, I'll just end it here. My last comment is Whiteside in with 3 minutes left. Jokes and jokes and jokes. Damn it, Whiteside was getting good hits, and I thought he was pretty talented. I didn't think NBA for him, not yet. But, goddamn, how the mighty have fallen, at least for now. Daniels, in his debut, was 20 minutes, 3 for 10, 2 of 3 from the line, 7 rebounds, where he's very good. 4 personal fouls, 4 turnovers, 8 points. So, yeah, wasn't very impressive. Whiteside, I think, will get more time going forward. Okay, so like I said, 2 Be Wells for Royce White, 3 Winnebagos. This is never a game you'll hear about ever again. There was no great from Royce White. There was no terrible from Royce White. Just more of the same that we've got from him before. The only thing that was different is that there was no terrible or great. Damn it, I was hoping this would only be a 30-minute video. Thanks for listening. Like at the bottom. Subscribe if you're into this sort of basketball analysis. Thanks for listening.